Today I'll be giving a brief introduction and overview of points of quality inspection of various construction materials being used in MES. First and the foremost material which is required for any construction activity is the building storage material, primarily the cement and the steel. The cement bags should be stored properly in godowns with overhead cover and with on proper dunnage away from the walls and any potential water leakage sources. The next important material for the construction is steel. They have to be stacked diameter wise with a proper dunnage over a coat of cement slurry. It has to be ensured that the stacking is adequately spaced so that the usage can be done properly. The sand, aggregate and other construction material has to be stored separately in various bins and platforms, preferably near to the construction site. The pipes have to be well stacked, again categorically according to their dimensions. The cable drums, which are primarily used for the E&M electric supply and other activities, should be stored under shade with proper dunnage. To keep a check on the various construction material and their security, various site documents have to be maintained, which include the works diary, the site order book, the stage passing registers, the sample approvals of various material to be used in the job, also the material testing which is being done time and again. A proper log of the same has to be maintained. The cement and steel register, pre-inspection register, also the acceptance register of the lot along with its connected documents like the purchase vouchers and various random testing test certificates, the cement consumption register and the forecast requirement of cement and steel registers have to be maintained. The stages need to be passed by various executives on ground, that is the garrison engineer, the assistant garrison engineer and junior engineer in the suitable appropriate times to ensure that the work is executed hassle-free. Timely approvals for various materials to be used has to be given duly after the test certificates and various random tests have been carried out. The level sheets showing the levels of existing ground have to be duly approved by the garrison engineer. Various stages of sample quarters have to be passed by the garrison engineer and the sample quarter is to be completed in all respects within the time fixed for its completion. These works which are beyond 5 crores have the works which are beyond 1 crore of the sanction. A site lab has to be established as per the requirement. The site lab should be fully furnished and self-sufficient for the site executives to carry out various tests before and after the various stages of work. The equipment needs to be kept at site lab as per requirement of the various construction materials and also as per the CA. All the equipment should be duly calibrated. The contractor shall employ adequately qualified person and technicians for the site lab. Various charts and test procedures have to be displayed in bold and simple language. The relevant IS codes have to be followed for conducting these various tests. Design mix is one critical aspect which gives the strength of the building and also plays a major role in the overall quality of construction. Hence, the design mix has to be given due diligence and has to be approved from an NABL lab or any approved agency as per the contract agreement prior to the commencement of work. The batch mixer machine or RMC has to be located at site, well calibrated and in a fully functional state. The approval of admixture, if there is a delay in construction, the site and the plant, then permissions and various tests and the ratio of admixture has to be taken in advance. The check for minimum cement content and water ratio has to be pre-approved as per the design mix. Trial mixes should be carried out and be placed on record for the same and the register for the same has to be maintained. The test samples for 3 reserve test cubes for each casting should be made available and the test obtained has to be time and again checked at the site lab, which gives the quality assurance of the construction activity being carried out. The acceptance criteria has to be as per IS 456-2000. Weighing arrangements for various cement and water have to be provided at site. Sufficient number of mechanical mixtures are to be ensured at site. The stone masonry work, the size of the stones, thickness of the mortar joints have to be ensured. Also, the PCC bonding stone, the casting in situ has to be weighed against the availability or the usage of precast blocks. Also, their size and numbers which will be required per square meter of construction has to be ascertained prior to commencement of the work. The hollowness of the mortar, their random testing has to be carried out. Adequate number of weep holes in case of the retaining walls and drains has to be catered well in advance so that there is no damage to the structure in later. The PCC coping, its thickness and projection and throating has to be ensured throughout the course of construction. Ranking of the mortar joints and its depth have to be checked. Also, the types of masonry like the finish coarse, uncoarse, brought to coarse, etc. have to be checked while executing the job. Also, adequate impetus has to be given on dressing of the stones so that it brings in an uniformity and an aesthetic look to the overall project. The RCC chhajjas and plinth protection, they have the zonal specifications of the Chief Engineer Office and various TD drawings of the zone have to be followed while executing the job of RCC chhajjas and plinth protection. The foundation plays a key role in the structural stability of any of the building. It is the most essential part for any of the construction activity. Various parameters which have to be checked for the quality inspection of foundation are: it has to be ensured that the plinth beams are provided at plinth level or not to avoid DPC. Also, the water level has to be checked, whether the water level was high or what activities have been carried out for the dewatering. The foundation has to be cast in dry surface. Was ATT chemical treatment being used or as part of the contract has to be ensured and accordingly implemented on ground. Also, the soil investigation which was carried out, does it cater for the requirement of our structure design as per the details of the soil investigation has to be confirmed. The dimensions of excavation and adequate room for working space and subsequent dewatering if required has to be catered prior to commencement of the foundation. In case of pile foundations, the initial load test report, the routine load test report, depth of pile, mixed design for pile has to be pursued with reference to the contract agreement and its specifications. If any rock is met during the excavation, whether mechanical means to be used or whether blasting has to be used, has to be taken approval in advance, and accordingly the same needs to be catered through various DOs and the schedule of credit needs to be deducted for the hard rock which has been obtained. The steel reinforcements are again an important part. They are the elementary skeletal structure for any of the building or any of the infrastructure which is coming up. It has to be ensured that the steel is procured from the main producers or if not available, then from the secondary producers as specified in the contract agreement. In case of the main producers, the manufacturer's test certificate and vouchers are to be seen and defaced, and also independent testing has to be carried out randomly by the garrison engineer. The cement slurry application has to be carried out during the storage of steel on proper dunnage to avoid rusting. Also, in the coastal areas where the effect of corrosion is high, CRS corrosion resistant steel has to be used. Centering of reinforcement properly has to be done and it needs to be checked. In case of columns, generally non-uniform cover is obtained due to non-holding of reinforcements. This needs to be avoided to the maximum possible extent. Also, the lap length at spacing portion and anchorage length at beam column junctions shall not be less than the development length. This point has to be ensured. In the slabs, the chair between two layers of reinforcement near supports shall be provided. In the brickwork, the aspects of the nature of brick, that is the class, quality, dimensions and source of the brick have to be ascertained well in advance. Adequate arrangements have to be made for filling in the vertical joints. Raking of the joints, their depth and thickness has to be ensured. The line and level of the brickwork should be uniform. Adequate curing needs to be carried out for the brickwork. Mix and strength of the mortar joints has to be ensured time and again at various stages of construction. Efflorescence to be avoided on the brick masonry surfaces. Also, the random testing of the bricks has to be carried out at regular intervals. The formwork which is used for supporting the various RCC activities has to be ensured that only steel props are used for scaffoldings and the wooden props are to be avoided at all costs as per the latest instructions promulgated from the ENC's branch. Also, steel shuttering should be preferably used at various inaccessible places or uneven surfaces where the dimensions are not as per the standard dimensions. Plywood can be used. Removal of the formwork has to be planned well in advance so that the fair finish of the concrete is obtained. It has been observed that the structures come up well. However, there is an issue of waterproofing. The waterproofing has to be planned well in advance while the execution stage, and various materials of waterproofing which have been approved in the contract agreement have to be incorporated during the execution stage. The depressions or the surface has to be finished in order to enable the proper laying of the waterproofing material. Also, the usage of primer, its grade, the quantity of the material to be used per square meter has to be ascertained well in advance. The bitumen surfaces, the bitumen material which is being used for the waterproofing has to be checked for its grade and the rate of application. The tests for the same have to be carried out at regular intervals. Also, the polymeric waterproofing, when being used, the thickness of central core and weight per square kilometer has to be checked. The manufacturer test certificates and independent test certificates have to be obtained. Also, the side and the end overlaps have to be ensured that adequate overlapping is being carried out so that there is no seepage of water from these places. The torching of overlap portions has to be carried out properly. The filleting of parapet walls has to be carried out. The formation of bubbles has to be checked while execution of the work and ensured that there are no bubbles which are formed. Also, the turning of vertical face of roof projections has to be catered, failing which the entire roof treatment may sometimes fail. Treatment below and around the water tank which is already existing over the surfaces has to be done properly, and also at the mouth of the rainwater pipes. These places, though very small in the meter area occupied, play an essential role for the success of the overall roof treatment. Also, the treatment of parapets, that is upward parapets and downward fascias, should be inserted in groves and parapets. In case of non-accessible roofs, there should be no further treatment over the polymeric membrane except if required from thermal insulation after various considerations. In case of accessible roofs, the quality and thickness of the precast machine pressed tiles should be used. The quality of wooden frames, the type of timber used, plays a major role in this. Its dimensions, the surface finish which the user requires, and what is specified in the contract agreement have to be catered for. Their preservative treatment has to be carried out well in advance so that there is no issue of termites later on. Also, the aspects of chamfering and rounding of the edges has to be looked into. The types of joint, whether it is tongued or grooved, that has to be checked. The length and thickness of holdfasts, and also the size of PCC blocks required for the holdfast have to be checked well in advance. Pressed steel frames being used, the profile dimensions have to be checked as per the drawings available in the contract. Also, the thickness of the sheet which is being used, the manufacturer, various test certificate required for approval of these samples. Also, the availability of pipe sleeve for door bolt, stiffener at the bottom. The length and thickness of the holdfast and the make and material of the holdfast needs to be checked. Also, the size of PCC bed block required for holdfast is to be ensured. Wooden shutters, the dimensions of stiles, rails and thickness has to be checked. Subtendoned or fully tendoned has to be checked. The material has to be either factory made or locally fabricated has to be ensured as per the CA specifications. The type of timber also plays a role in the nature of finish to be obtained. Preservative chemical treatment should be carried out. Also, it has to be ensured that the surface finish is of the utmost quality. The type of particle board which is being used has to be checked for the panel inserts. Also, the testing for doors, windows and shutters has to be carried out before the approval of material. The quantity and the dimensions of bars in mosquito-proof doors has to be checked. Diameter of wire and aperture of wire cloth has to be checked to be in tune with the contract agreement specifications. The provision for wooden door stoppers has to be made. Also, self-closing arrangements in mosquito-proof shutters has to be ensured. Aluminium sheet lining on doors of WC, bath and toilet, its thickness and the height of coverage have to be checked. The curtain rods, the external dia and the wall thickness has to be catered while procuring the curtain rods. The type preferably should be aluminium or MS steel. The hangers, the length and their thickness of to be used. Type of door spring and its length have to be checked. Also, ISA marking and make of the tower bolts, sliding door bolt, handles, door spring, etc. have to be checked. This nature of screws and various other material to be used for fixing of this hardware has also to be ensured. Coming to the MS butt hinges, the type of butt hinges, that is heavy or medium, has to be ascertained in advance. Also their flap length and their thickness as per various IS codes specified in various MES manuals. Nothing less than the ISA marking should be accepted and incorporated in use. Various building hardware materials like butt hinges, the nature of butt hinges, that is heavy or medium, their flap length and thickness and manufacturing material has to be used. Similarly for the tower bolts and sliding door bolts and handles have to be used. The next important aspect is of the aluminium doors and windows being used. The dimension of stiles, rails and chocket has to be checked and accurate. The wall thickness of the various members has to be in sync with the construction activity. The degree of anodizing has to be carried out as per the specifications of the contract agreement. Various manufacturers' test certificates and random test certificates have to be obtained prior to the incorporation of material into construction activity. The longevity of the floor spring has to be checked. Also the locks and number of locks and the types of levers to be used in these locks have to be checked. The rubber gasket lining has to be ensured. Type of insert panels, the type of glass thickness and pre-laminated particle board, internal or external grade has to be checked prior to incorporation on site. For the steel windows, the configuration of the window, whether glazed and wire gauge shutter on common frame or the glazed and wire gauge shutter on a separate frame has to be checked. Also the glazed bars in wire gauge shutters has to be checked. The width and thickness of the Z section, glazing bars and sash bars has to be checked. With respect to the hinges of various steel windows, the aspects which are to be checked are protecting, friction or box type. The electro galvanizing of hinge pin has to be checked. Thickness, length of the sheet, number of washers and thickness of these has to be ensured as per the CS specifications. Oil paper has to be used for covering and during the plaster activity so that the same is not damaged. The number of lugs to be used on the sides has to be checked. Lugs have to be welded or bolted. The length and thickness of these lugs has to be ensured prior to the construction activity. The fixing arrangement of the windows flush with RCC columns has to be in sync and seamless. Smoothing of the flash butt welding has to be carried out prior to the completion of the job. Also, the length, thickness and finish of peg stay and window handles has to be checked. With respect to the ceiling, the size of the aluminium T including wall thickness has to be checked. Also, the method of suspension of the ceiling from the roof has to be checked. The level adjuster has to be proper so that the entire ceiling is at one level. Also, the holding clips at adequate spacing has to be provided to ensure uniformity. The tiles which are being used have to be checked for their thickness. For the tiles, perforated particle board, the nature of material to be used, that is perforated particle board, plain AC board or any other make or material. For the gypsum false ceiling, GA channels, the size of GA channels and their wall thickness and make of gypsum board, fixing screws, that is brass or GA, has to be ascertained, and also tape at the joints has to be done. For coming to the flooring, the PCC flooring, thickness has to be ensured, the finish and level of the slope has to be maintained throughout the floor and towards the area where the water has to be drained out. The size of panels has to be checked. Dividing strips, material and its size has to be ascertained. The random testing for hollowness has to be checked through tapping. While using the Kota stone, the size and thickness of Kota stone slabs and tiles has to be checked. The uniformity of color has to be maintained. Various scratch marks have to be identified and if found have to be discarded. The joints should be smooth. The width of the joints should be uniform. Also, the testing for hollowness has to be carried out through tapping. The level of the top surfaces and the slope has to be ensured to be uniform throughout. The cutting and polishing has to be carried out so that a mirror finish is obtained. The flooring where ceramic and vitrified and glazed tiles are used, the quality and make of the tiles has to be in specification with the CA specifications. Also, the color, wherein the user incorporation is required to achieve a degree of satisfaction. Also, the size and thickness, finish, has to be ascertained whether the same should be matte finish, non-skid or dual charge. The width of the joints should be uniform and seamless. The depth of filling of white cement has to be ensured in conformation with the color of the tiles. Also, the level of the surface should be uniform and the sloping towards the drainage plan should be ensured. The testing for hollowness has to be carried out through tapping. At floors where marble and granite flooring is used, the thickness and size of the tiles or slab has to be checked. Also, the width of the joints has to be ensured that they are uniform and in the same color segment as the granite or the marbles. The cutting and polishing has to ensure the mirror finish. The thickness of the screed layer has to be ensured in the flooring. Also, the level of the top surface. Coming to the tile dado part, the type of tiles, make and their quality has to be checked. The color has to be as per the aesthetic pattern and availability. The height of the dado to be as per the contract agreement specifications. While using the dado tiles, the size and thickness of the tiles has to be ensured, and also the uniformity of the width of the joints has to be checked. In addition to the depth of filling of white cement while executing this job. Also, rounding of edges on the jam locations has to be carried out. Also, random tests for hollowness has to be done through tapping. The major aspect which brings out the aesthetics of the building or gives out the aesthetics of the building is the plastering work. It has to be ensured that there are no cracks in the plastering. The thickness has to be uniform. The surface finish should be of the highest quality. The line and length has to be maintained throughout the surface. The nature of slurry being used for the plaster has to be uniform of a pre-approved mix and strength. The adequate grooves have to be left during the plaster work, and also while carrying out plaster on chhajjas and rooftops, the same has to be ensured. The nature of sand to be used in plastering plays an important role in the quality of finish which is being desired. Hence, adequate importance should be given to the nature of sand being used and its quality. Also, the number of layers of plastering to be carried out has to be checked as per the CA agreement. Pointing, it is a reflection of the quality of workmanship. Hence, high standard of workmanship has to be ensured throughout the job. Also, type of pointing specified and incorporated as per the CA has to be ensured. The painting. Prior to the painting, adequate surface preparation has to be carried out. Removal of mortar deposits from the doors, windows and other parts has to be carried out. It has to be ensured that a fair finish has been obtained prior to application of the primer. The brush marks and uniformity of the color has to be ensured. Also, the type of enamel paint has to be as per the specifications of the contract agreement. Whether the cement paint is coming out on rubbing of the hands has to be checked. Also, removal of paint stains after the application of paint from the plinth, protection and glass panes has to be ensured. And wherever the cement paint is used, the curing has to be carried out. The sewage pipes. The sewage pipes have to be in tune with the CA specifications, their sizes, their type of manufacturing and various test certificates. The thickness of bedding layer over which these pipes are laid has to be checked. Also, the return filling of soil in trenches has to be carried out properly. Haunching and rounding of these pipes needs to be ensured. In areas having black cotton soil, the haunching has to be carried out properly so that these pipes have a longer life. Also, the depth of these pipes has to be laid in such that there is no backflow. Various intersections of roads, culverts and other central amenities have to be checked before laying of these pipes. The manholes have to be provided at adequate intervals. While providing these manholes, it has to be ensured that the cover of these manholes are with either RCC or CA as per the CA specifications. The size and finish of these covers, the smoothness of the plaster of these manholes, the PCC coping on top walls has to be ensured. Also, handles have to be provided for these manhole covers. Septic tanks and soak wells. The overall dimensions of these septic tanks or soak wells has to be in tune with the CA contract agreement. The thickness grade and concrete to be used for the top slab has to be checked. The finish inside and outside, finish of the inside and the outside plaster has to be checked. The vent pipes have to be provided and the manhole covers with handles have to be provided. Wherever possible, twin septic tanks are preferred. The testing of sewage system has to be carried out using smoke and water to check any obstruction prior the asset is put into the use. Coming to the various aspects of internal electrification, PVC casing and caping. While ensuring this, whether the proper specifications as per the contract agreement are being used and are being laid at site. The screws used for wiring should be cadmium plated. The accessories to the casing and caping, their quality and their size has to be checked. Conduit wiring. Coming to the aspect of area drainage. While planning and executing the area drainage, the location, the grid, the direction of pipes and also the slopes of drains with respect to the topography and the natural slope of the ground has to be checked while executing the job. There has to be adequate number of cross sections of the drain with respect to the discharge and their size. The section of culverts with respect to the discharge has to be ensured. Adequate precautions have to be taken while executing this job in black cotton areas. Also, the quality of brickwork, the PCC being used and the plaster of drains has to be laid as per the specifications, laid down specifications while executing. Thank you.